This person can reach over with their hand and literally crush me like a washcloth, like you wring out a washcloth with one hand. Okay? This is to know this and to be around them is something completely different, you know?
Yeah.
And so to see that and then wonder about a stick Indian, I've only seen a stick Indian, I count time on my hands, both hands. Okay? Both times I didn't want to get anywhere near it because to me it looked as tall as a freaking tree. You know, and like I said, I grew up in Oregon. I'm around cedar trees.
Can you go in a little bit more depth about when you actually saw one of these things and what the situation was and what it was like?
I sure can. I lived in Oregon, and I used to yell and whoop. I still do. When I'm taking stuff up to my group for food, I have a whoop. I yell for them to come so they know I'm there, and that I'm dropping stuff off. They may not come, just so they know that I'm dropping something off. And if I drop off, for instance, a javelina or a sheep or a goat or whatever, I'm taking up to them, I need them to know that I dropped it off and that in case something else, like a cat comes and grabs it or a coyote or whatever, and drags it off. Mm-hmm. So I always whooped. I've done that ever since I was a kid. And I would take things down to my group and whoop for them.
So they know there's food over here now. Woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. We can go over there and get it. Well, this time I thought I was being smart. I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I really did not. My uncle had shown me how to whistle, where you take your fingers, in a circle and put them in your mouth and whistle.
Yeah.
And I was proud, that I'd learned how to do that. So I had all this stuff left over from dinner, and I was taking it down to them in a big brown grocery bag, and I was walking, and I didn't want to go all the way down into the canyon because it's a bit of a hike. You got to go down into the canyon, down past the creek, up over on the other side, and drop this stuff off. So I thought instead of yelling, I thought this shrill whistle would be louder, and they could come get it from me, just come get it up on the side of the top of the canyon part, so I didn't have to go down to the bottom of the canyon. And in doing this, I thought, well, I'll just whistle. Wrong thing for me to do. I had no idea. I let out this big shrill whistle, waited a second, and then did it again. And as soon as I did it the second time, I could see the trees. Okay, Oregon is very overgrown. We have moss. We have bushes everywhere. It's a rainforest. So
it's Jurassic Park looking, basically.
Yeah. I watched this thing come through the trees, the bushes, and it just was stepping through them, parting. Think about watching a dinosaur movie when you know a dinosaur's coming. You know, how they show all the trees moving and things. It was like that. And only they were being squished, pushed down out of its way. And then the next thing I realized, I'm standing on the side of a hill, at the top of this hill. And this thing steps out, and it's almost eye level with me. Okay? And I'm like, oh my God, what are you? You know, it was enormous. Absolutely enormous. Kiasi and them are big. Don't get me wrong. These guys are giants. This thing way over their head, like I said, 17 feet tall. That
was
head
it a male?
popped out. It was a male. They're always male. Always.
Did he have the lower tusks?
He had one tusk, only one, where it was broken. Yeah. And he was standing there just staring at me, and he was doing the, I call it intimidation breathing, what they do.
Jesus. Yeah. Was doing the puffing thing, you know.
Yeah. I just stood there, had my garbage, my brown bags full of their food, you know, and I just literally just grabbed them and started to run, and then I realized, no, you can just have them. And I threw them. I threw it and went running. I mean, I hauled butt up the rest of the way to the hill to the house. When I got there, my uncle was looking at me, and he said, "What is wrong with you?" And I guess I was white as a ghost. And I told him, and he started shaking me. He said, "Don't you ever, ever whistle when you're out there." He said, "Because if you do, that calls them." He said, "That's part of their language." He said, "Do not ever do that." And to this day, it is something that I have drilled into my kids when we're interacting. Do not whistle under any circumstance. I don't care. You know, if it's Yankee Doodle Dead, don't do it. Because I have been able to show my children on paper from the reports of people missing or people that have interactions when they're out in the forest, they were heard whistling. They were heard whistling. And I'm like, there you go.
And as long as we're on the subject, we should bring up the two important points here. I've heard other reports, and some of them going back a long ways, of people hearing this really loud, high-pitched whistling going through the forest, going to see what it was, and spotting a troll, mountain giant, stick Indian, whatever you want to call it.
There we go.
And then, and the other thing that we should really bring up at this point, there's another cryptid that communicates by whistling, and we're same one we're talking about on this show here, the Gugwees, the Type 3, the Tugawee, the Bear Man, the Face Eater, they whistle. But there's a difference now, right? They almost have like a whistling language where like the tone and stuff will change, so they can actually they can communicate to each other via whistling, and the mountain giants are just sort of using it like a warning. Hey, I'm a troll. I'm right here. Notice this nice loud whistling. I'll kill you.
Yeah. It's like a tea kettle whistling. You know, it's very sharp, very piercing.
Right. And really loud.
Yes.
And so when you gave him that big loud whistle, he went, "Oh, there's another troll over here. Let's go see what's going on."
Yeah, maybe I'll have to kick its butt. Because
God.
it's in my territory.
That's probably it. You know, that's what I think happened to one guy here that went missing in the Bitterroot Valley here in 2014. He decided to go out to Ambrose Creek Saddle. George Alex Bauman. He was going to chop some wood. They just said in the paper that he was going to go gather firewood. Now, my guess is that he was splitting wood.
Oh, yeah.
Which you know what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And nearby Alpha came wandering up and went, "Oh, so there's a challenger, somebody over here wood knocking. I'm going to go kick his ass." Showed up, saw Lone Dum Dum, and went, "Well, this pissed me off. I'm just going to snap his neck and haul him away. And nobody else will come back and do this." Well, they had a helicopter there for 2 days trying to find him. Nothing. They had 3 dog teams there trying to find a scent trail. Nothing. His abandoned truck was there. 2 weeks later, they found his torn limb from limb remains spread over about 40 feet of a thickly wooded hillside about 2 miles from where he went missing.
See, there you go, torn apart. See, and that's what I've told people for years. Why would you go out and go call blasting and doing this stuff when you don't even know the language? You know, for all you know, your recorded calls could be yelling at them, you know, F you, F you. You kind of want to kick your butt. You know?
So yeah, just to drive that point home even further, man. If you're out in the woods and you're hearing whistling, make sure that it's a human before you go check it out. You know, and if you're hearing this weird whistling that's changing like pitch and tone and stuff, or it sounds kind of like, you know, birds trying to talk to each other or something, you're probably talking about, there's probably a type 3 there. Really don't go there.
Yeah, please don't, because that's exactly what they sound like. I've always told people, you remember when you could go to the fair and you could get those little discs and put them on your tongue and whistle like a bird, you know, blow through them and things. That's, don't do that, please. Just don't.
Jesus.
Because, can you imagine? I can't, because I'm terrified. I'm pretty brave because I have to be brave. You know, I'm a mom to my kids, you know, and I have to do the things that I have to do, and I had to raise my boys to be boys. But I'll tell you what, ding, face eaters, ding, stick Indians, no. It's just one of those things. People ask me all the time, well, don't you want to do it? No, I don't want to do it again. I'm very fine interacting with my family. I really don't need to see them again. I don't need to interact with them if I don't have to, because they are that terrifying, you know. And there are monsters out there. There are, whether people like it or not. You know, we're apex predators as long as we're inside our cities, you know, where we live, because we made them. You know, we conform our cities to us. Go out in the woods, you're not apex. I don't care what you think, you're not. You know, people always tell me humans are apex predators. No, you're not a food chain. Because if I were to dump you out there with no weapons, really, you think you're going to take on a bear?
No. Nope. We're pitifully under-equipped and under-trained. We don't have a chance if we haven't got our technology with us. And that's the bottom line. And they make a living out there day and night, year in, year out, without having basically any technology. So we got no chance in their environment. They're, you know, I like to liken it to, okay, you're going to go out and you're going to find Bigfoot. Let's paint a picture here for you. Let's assume that, let's change Bigfoot and let's make him just like a human, okay? And this Bigfoot now is going to be a special forces, we'll say Marine recon, okay? And you're going to go out in the woods and you're going to find him. Now, Marine recon is not nearly as well trained as a Bigfoot is, but they're pretty well trained compared to a human. Now let's put things in perspective. Now you're going to go out and you're going to find this Marine recon guy who's out in the woods, and to put things in perspective, we're going to make you and your team 5-year-old humans. Now what's your chance that you're going to be able to sneak up on this guy? Well, he's sitting up on top of the hill watching you and chuckling to himself and following you around all day, and you're finding Jack. And this is a good analogy for what your chances are of finding Bigfoot.
Yep, it is, because they're doing exactly what you just said. They're following you around. You know, people don't even realize that. They follow you and they trail you. And here's the one that's even scarier that most people don't even think about, okay? They go out in the woods, they have their interaction, and their house is 5 miles away from said trailhead, you know?
Yeah.
Excuse me, you don't think that they're going to follow you home?
Well, not only that, at the speed they can move, 5 miles is like, oh, they could be there in 10 minutes and hardly even break a sweat.
You know, so now you've just shown them where you live and whatever you may have around your house that's interesting. You know, dogs.
Yeah. That's another thing. I mean, I know you have you've had troops that you have interaction with, and it's a little bit different situation than somebody that's just going into the woods cold, finds a Bigfoot troop, and starts doing things with them. I personally do not recommend that anybody habituates with food, because I don't think that that's a good idea, that you're going to end up with a situation where it's sort of like feeding a bear, only almost worse, because you're giving them what they may start to consider to be tribute. And they're going to start going, oh, you're finally admitting that you're lower on the pecking scale than me and you're giving me my just due. Here's my tribute. And then when you don't show up with it, where's my tribute, stupid human? I'm going to whip your ass. Then they get mad.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I want to make something clear here too, because that's a good thing that you just brought up, because I didn't state it earlier. Most people who know me and follow me know that the reason that I take up sheep or goat or javelina, whatever is been killed, is not because I want to. It is because I have made an agreement with my group in that if I take something up, they will not go to the rancher who lives 2 miles down the road. and kill 10 of his sheep. Okay, so
Right.
this has been a long time. I guess you want to say agreement between them and I. If I would take them up big game that is enough to give them something to eat, they will not go kill, because there was a time when I did not do this, and they were going crazy here. They were attacking the cows, that one of my ranchers had up the way. They were attacking the sheep. They were attacking pigs. All his pigs disappeared. I mean, it just got to the point where, I have to live here, and my neighbors are going to kill me. They're like, there's something big on your property, and we know it. And it's like this: either you get that stuff to stop, or we're going to have to come over there and go hunting. So it became a way for me to make sure that there was an agreement in place. Now, do they always abide? Yeah, do they abide by it all the time? No. Do I end up paying for it? Yes. I hate plopping down $1,000 for a cow that got its head ripped off. Yeah, that really ticks me off. Okay, so yeah. For the most part, though, as long as I do this and this agreement stays in place, then we're pretty good, But do I feel like I'm over a barrel on it? Hell yes, I do. Okay, I get very.
And little suckers tricked you, Khat. They got you. They habituated you.
I know. And what you're saying is very true. I tell people all the time, for God's sake, don't feed them in your yard. Don't leave them bread trails coming through. And I have had like 6 people tell me, well, I finally got them to come to my yard. And I'm like, oh my God.
Let me tell you what happens when you keep attracting them to your yard for years. And this is the best case scenario. There's a little old lady that lives out in the hills and in the mountains over on the East Coast, and she knows one of my friends who's very interested in Bigfoot. And she started talking to him, and it turns out that until recently, her husband just died a few years ago. Her and her husband had both been habituating a troop of them, to the point where these things were not afraid to be seen by them at all. They'd show up right in broad daylight and come get food. And they had a little youngster with them who at the time was running around on all fours and being playful and fun. And so they named him Scooter. Well, here it is, 10 years later, the husband is dead. The old lady's still out there. The Bigfoot are still hanging around on her property. And Scooter is like 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
So my friend's out there camping out in his car for a few days just to do some research and take a look at what's around the property and look at tracks and stuff like that. And, he saw them right away. They were like around there. It's pretty obvious. So he's sleeping in the back of his car. In the middle of the night, he wakes up. Nature's calling. Oh, my God, I got to get out and, take care of it. Opens up the door, takes like 3 or 4 steps and unzips his fly, standing there taking care of business. And it's really dark, and he's kind of looking around a little bit down at the ground, obviously, because, when you're a guy and you're doing that, you're like making sure you're not getting it on yourself. Yeah. And his eyes sort of like scan a little bit to the left, 3 or 4 feet. And there's these huge black things. And he looks at it and he starts looking up. And I just about fell over backwards. There's Scooter like 4 feet away standing there watching me pee. I just about had a damn heart attack. And he just looked at me like, what are you doing? What's up? Yeah, scared the living hell out of him.
Yeah, that would do it. That would definitely do it. He's lucky he didn't get his car peed on. He really is. Yeah.
I said, well, what'd you do at that point? And he goes, well, what can you do? I was kind of surprised I was still peeing, so I finished it off, and then I jumped back in the car.
Oh, my ex.
So, fun stuff. Hey, before I forget now, there's one more thing that I'd like to bring up and sort of get your opinion on. And we were talking about the Missing 411 books and Dave Pilates and all of his big, massive effort to collect all of these pieces of data from all over the place and try and make some sense out of them. And neither one of us think that Bigfoot Type 1 is really the culprit behind this. And I figured I'd give you an opportunity to go, okay, There's no Dave Pilates. Khat Hansen is out there doing all this research, turning out the books, getting all this information. Now, if Khat Hansen is looking at all this information, what is Khat going to say is probably the likely culprit or culprits that are making people disappear?
There are two. There are two. And it's not what he's saying. You know, that's what you and I had discussed. It makes me, I'm just like, okay. He sat and interviewed me for over 3.5 hours for this, you know, and I told him then, and I say it now emphatically, it is not your type ones, okay? You've got face eaters are predominant, and I want to say something here in that I'm not able to do any type of physical research to go live among the face eaters, but
well, who the hell could? Don't eat your face. You can't go
no.
This isn't like a Diane Fossey thing. I'm going to make them my friends. No, they'll just eat you.
People ask me this stuff. I'm serious. You know, they were like, well, if you know so much, why don't you go live among them? You know, and I'm like, oh, my God. Okay, sure. I don't have a death wish, okay? But my point is this. From the reports, and I get lots of reports from people, lots sent to me because they know what I'm doing and they know that I'm interested. They're breeding, and guess what? They're not as few and far between as people think. They're breeding, so they are having bigger troops, as in one of the people that I did get a report from lives down that mountain that I told you about in Kentucky. He's counted 14 of them.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
You know, Kuhnbo has been doing some research on that, too, and he's found 3 areas in the south where he's absolutely sure that there's troops of type 3 living. But beyond that, he hasn't found very many of them. Mostly what they're running into down there is 1s and 2s.
Well, here's another one, too. In Colorado, this one was classic, okay? I got a person who told me they started removing the wheels on my truck.
What?
I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, I knew they were there, and I didn't think they knew I was there because I parked 10 miles down the mountain before I hiked in. He said, I came back to find the wheels removed off the back of my truck with big holes in them.
Oh, my God.
He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, so I have a CB on my radio, on my truck, and I called out and luckily was able to get somebody. He said, but I locked myself in the truck when I realized that they had ripped the tires, my wheels, off of my truck and eaten my tires. He said they were making it very well known that, hey, you know what, MFer, you're in my area and I want you here. He said, I'm sitting there with a 44 and a shotgun hanging in the back of the truck. He said, and I want you to know, Kat, he said, I was scared witless. He said, I felt like I was the most unprepared person in the world. And I knew they were up there. He said, I knew they were up there, and I've been watching them, you know, and he said, in this group, when he started watching this group, he said there were 5, and he was watching them across mountains, okay? He was on one ridge and looking clear over to another ridge and watching them through his scope, okay? So he had been watching them, and they went and grew in size. The group up there now, he says, there's 12 of them. So they are breeding. They are breeding.
Absolutely.
And people need to be aware of this. So when you're hiking, you know, please, you know, like I said, bears, lions, tigers, bears, oh my. No, you guys really need to be a little concerned here because if they're breeding and our climate is getting to the point where, hey, it's conducive to their breeding, they're going to need more food. And in needing more food, they're going to take the easiest food supply, okay? And easy peasy food supply are humans, okay, because we're dumb. You know, we're like, hey, let's go out here for a picnic. And in the meantime, let's take 20,000 pounds of food with us, and it smells good, and we let everything know. You know, plus we're noisy. We've got children. And people don't like to think about this, but children are really, really a good food source for an animal because they don't fight back. They're slow. They always lag behind. They're weaker. You know, and this is true. So think about that, okay? If you're out there in their area and these things are breeding and they're more and more and more, which, you know, it's just odds. You know, you can sit there and figure out numbers, roll the numbers and figure them out, but they're working it. you know, and they're working it to their advantage because we are sending people into the mountains in this time frame. There's more of us than any other unprecedented time. You know, we're hiking, we're trying to get back to nature. Added to the fact that there's how many billions of us out there.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, before you get too far with this thought, let me make some quick additions on here. That yes, there are more of us. There are also less of us living in the woods than there used to be. There's big areas up in Canada that used to have people living in that don't anymore.
Right.
And the reason they were there is because it was a different time period. They were fur trapping, they were, you know, prospecting for gold or whatever. So I mean, that's like common in Alaska and stuff. You just find an abandoned cabin, there's nobody living there.
Right.
So there's more of us, but we are more clustered together in big cities than we used to be.
Yep.
Now, at the same time, we've got more agriculture going. There's more crops growing on this continent than there probably has ever been before. And that's contributing to a gigantic increase in the white-tailed deer population. The white-tailed deer population is the highest it's ever been in North America. So there's one food source for them. Plus, you've got all the crops you can raid. Plus, you've got the garbage that we leave lying around. And we just went into this a couple episodes ago where we were talking about the contagion theory that the whole population of Bigfoot here in North America had been decimated by the diseases that the white man brought over at the same time that he killed off all the natives. And that it may be that just finally at this point, their populations are starting to recover enough that there's more of them around, hence the reason we're seeing more of them. Not because we're any trickier or there's more of us in the woods, just that there's more of them. So there's more opportunities for them to make a mistake and for us to see one of them.
Exactly. I agree with that because there are more of them, like I just said. And here in Arizona, we're brilliant because the Hohokam Indians were here, you know, and they had this amazing canal system set up across this entire state, okay? Mm-hmm. And when the white people moved here and populated it even more, they took those canals and they built off of those existing canals. So we've made them, shored them up, poured cement in them, and you know they're still here. We use them; they're working canals, and all of the reports that you get here at some point have to do with the canals because they're coming down out of the mountains here and drinking out of the canals. And I know that firsthand because I've got a canal right here, and they do it all the time. They wade in them, they catch, and see people think, oh, it's just a canal; it just has water for the crops. No, guess what? We have actual channel cats that live in the canals.
Yeah.
They're big here. So
and anywhere in the country, the waterways are travel routes for them because they got water right there. They always got something to drink. Animals come down and get a drink. There's a food source. There's water there, so there's more plants growing around it. So you got berries and fruit and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, generally those areas where there's waterways and there's trees and stuff growing around them, there's more cover. So even in denuded areas, they can stay near the waterway and sneak through at night. You'll never even know they were there.
Right. And that's what I had posted a video to one of the groups that I used to belong to. I don't anymore, but showing how far my house was, where my house was to the canal, to the mountain. And I said, what I was pointing out, everybody didn't understand why I kept showing the ground cover that's here. You know, we've got these big mesquite bushes, creosote bushes, you know, and I said, listen, they come down off these and they sit here in the daytime. I mean, I can take video of them sitting right there in the daytime in a creosote bush, you know, sitting there watching everything because, you know, people don't even realize it, that they're there, you know, because that's how good they are. They just sit there. And what really got me was I had a neighbor, she's a neighbor now, built a $5 million house, you know, and she said, these things are coming out of the hills right here up into my backyard. She goes, I didn't want to have to put a fence in my backyard, and now, damn it, I have to put a fence in because I saw them. You know, and I said, well, I'm sorry. You know, what do you want? You've made it so that they want to come to your yard. You've planted orange trees. You've planted apple trees. You've planted some pears. You've got some wild grapes growing. I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why they're there. You know, they're opportunists. You've got tons of food hanging around there.
Yeah, you know. I was just like, whatever, lady. You know? Sorry.
Well, before we get too far away from the subject and I forget about it, Type 3s, more important information about Type 3s. Have not seen a Type 3 myself, don't know about this personally. I have seen a type 4. It had claws on its hands that looked like friggin' talons. Do type 3s, or maybe you know about type 4s too, do they have claws on their feet? Do they show in their tracks? Is there any way, if you find a Bigfoot-looking track out in the woods, can you tell if it's a face eater or a regular Sasquatch?
I can do it. I always tell people this about them, okay? People, there's two qualities. When a Bigfoot puts its foot down, okay, everybody's seen what a big footprint looks like, okay?
Right.
Everybody knows it in their mind, okay? Face eaters and your big guy there, they have claws, okay? These guys do not act like normal steuma in that a normal Bigfoot will take a deer and twist its head off, okay?
Right.
These guys are vicious. They fight. They gut. So they do have longer claws. When I have followed them, it took me a minute to look at the footprint and realize that I was not following a bear, because bear, when they walk, their claws extend out and you see them. So you see the whole footprint, right, with the pad and then more pads over the top of it and then those claws, okay? These guys have a smaller nail, which is funny because I'm saying smaller and it's just ironic. It's not that much smaller. But their nails are thicker. They're just, they don't trim them to a certain extent.
Right.
They do break off, but they do use them for fighting. So you're going to see that. You are going to see broken nails when you're tracking them. Okay, it's going to look like a bear footprint, but it's not going to have all 5 claws. It's not. You'll see like 1 or 2 or 3 claws right there.
So if you see something that looks like a huge human footprint or a Bigfoot footprint, and it looks like there's claw marks on the ends of any of the toes, then you need to get really worried.
Yeah, I'm thinking in one of my videos, I think I do have a picture of that where I put it up, where I was talking about them, and there is a footprint there, and you can actually see the claw marks. There's 3 claw marks in it.
If you could send that along, I would really appreciate it, because one of the ways that you can always tell, especially in soft substrate like mud or something, a bear's rear footprint, even regardless of the claws, like maybe it's like shallow mud and it's a black bear, it's a huge black bear, their claws don't extend very far. Unless the mud's very deep, you're not going to see them. They don't have dermal ridges. Bears do not have dermal ridges.
No dermal, no.
So if you see dermal ridges on the track, it ain't no bear.
No, you would definitely know that because we don't have dermal ridges, like you said. And here's something else that's interesting to me. When a bear walks, okay, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've only seen it like maybe one time where they have the wound in their foot. You can see from the outline of the track there. You can see where there's a wound. Okay, the type species, the big guys, the face eaters, they are completely different in that their foot pad has scars on it, and you've got to remember that these guys are running all over the forest. They're fighting. They're up on the ridges there where, I don't know about you, but I've tried to walk across rocks with no shoes on. It hurts, okay?
Yeah.
And especially granite. Granite is sharp. It has a lot of sharp edges, okay? So these guys have a lot of scar tissue and a lot of strange marks on the bottom of their feet that bears don't have, okay, because the bear paddles set down. Like I just said, I've only seen one where there's a wound in it. So, so you're going to see that this footprint with these claws and maybe scar tissue, you're going to see strange patterns in it, not dermal ridges, but scars. Right. You're going to notice that. So that would be one way to track them. Another way is, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice there. I coughed and not losing my voice. I don't even smoke.
Well, let me take over for a second then. Go clear your voice, take a sip of water. Obviously one of the critters that we're looking at the top of the prime suspect list for missing humans is going to be your type 3 or Gugwe, Tugwe, bearman, face eater. Type 4s, Wendigos, if you get anywhere near one of those things, good luck. But the other thing I wonder about is some of the other cryptids. I mean, you could just about guarantee, considering the personality and behavior displayed, that some people are going to go disappear as a result of Dogman. And the guest that I had on the last show I was talking to also thinks that there could be some of these people that are disappearing as a result of Puckwudgies, especially children, which they seem to have particular interest in.
Right.
And I was wondering if you wanted to point fingers at any other possible suspects that you think should be on the list.
I do. Don't really want to think about these beings, okay? People say there's two different types, okay? People say, oh, they're just a fairy, and who believes in fairies? What you do, okay? But then you really do need to stop for a minute and take into consideration that where's the best place that you can run and hide to on the North American continent? Go to the mountains. Because why? Because, like you said, people don't inhabit that place, okay? They do not. So there's a good place to hide and to remain anonymous, okay?
Yep.
So.
And same reason that you find Bigfoot in, like, large, scary forests and swamps and stuff like that. Difficult terrain. Humans don't live there and generally don't want to go there, but it's rich in things that they can make use of as far as food and whatnot, and the cover's great.
Exactly. So, do I think that Puckwudgies could be doing this? I did a show with somebody else, and we were talking about Puckwudgies, and I told him straight out, he had captured a picture of one, and I said, he said, oh, I'm gonna give it, take it some gifts. And I said, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't you understand that it's not your friend, okay?
No.
These things are dangerous. They specifically are known for taking children, taking women, people that are weaker than they are, okay?
Yeah.
So there's one concern that I have, okay? Do I think that they're out there living in the environment? Hell yes, I do. Because why?
Yeah.
Because people from the earliest time said, you know what, don't go over here because they live there. Okay, well, that's good. That's like Martin and Rosa down the road. They tell you, hey, don't go to that house. There's gang members that live in that house, and they like to kill people for initiation. Okay, don't do it. So there's one that we need to be aware of. The other one, there again, dogmen. Okay, people who know me and know about me, I do hunting of these things for tribes. These guys, I've got some issues with. Okay, they will take a human and they will eat them, no problem, if they think they can get away with it. Okay, so if they think they're in their area and there's no one around, and quite frankly, some of the stories that Paulides takes and puts in his book is a perfect example. I mean, you've got one park ranger, one forest ranger for how many miles of territory of forest?
Oh, yeah. It's hilariously ridiculous. And you look here, good example is Montana. We have right now, and this is a big number, 250,000 acres are on fire in Montana right now. And in some states, that would be like all the forests in the state and some in the next state. And here, that's like a drop in the bucket. We've got 2 parks in the state that have more than 1 million acres in them. And there's like how many rangers? Each ranger has an area so big that he couldn't cover it in his whole lifetime. It's ridiculous.
Right. So you see, are they opportunistic? Oh, yes. Do they think that they're going to get away with it? Oh, yes. Because there's nobody to stop it, to monitor it, to even, attempt to monitor these guys. Okay? Let alone added to the fact that when you bring up this type of subject to the government or to even for the federal workers, they're going to look at you like you're nuts. They need to start dialing them. They need to call the insane asylum right away because this person's telling them about these things. Okay. First of all, how many people report seeing an upright dog-looking thing? You just don't. You just don't hear that. Okay, so now you're automatically crazy. Okay, add to the fact that it's aggressive and it's actually bothering you while you're camping and it's stalking you. Because there are cases where this has been reported. And still the park rangers are like, no, you're nuts. There's nothing out there. Yeah. So that's because this is an unknown. It's an unknown that either A, they don't know anything about and don't want to research, or B, here's the interesting part, maybe they do know about it.
And it's just such a problem and so difficult to get rid of that they don't want to admit that it's there because it would open a gigantic can of worms they'd have to deal with. Not to mention throwing lots of suspicion on the whole theory of evolution.
Yeah, because you got a dog man walking around. Where does he come from? How does he fit in? And that's that's an interesting subject. Well, where does he fit in? But the point of the whole matter is we're food for that predator.
Right.
Those two predators.
And this is not a Dogman show, and I don't want to get too far into that. I've listened to your shows on Dogman before. It's very interesting. And, basically there's like 3 different things going on there. One is a race from another, star system or whatever that are basically harmless and look like dog-headed. Cyanocephalus, I think is what you're referencing there, those guys.
Right.
And then and they go back a long, long way. There was, they were well known by the Greeks and other ancient civilizations. There were whole cities of them that they interacted and dealt with and stuff, so not harmful.
Right.
Then you've got the Skinwalkers, and I don't know if you heard the interview that I did with Brenda Harris, and she was talking about her first real, big-time Bigfoot encounter where she was at home at night on the res in her little cabin, and the husband was working the night shift, and this thing was up there messing with her cabin all night long, slapping the walls, letting her see it through the window and stuff, scared the hell out of her. She was, sure it was like near the house and stuff a bunch of times, and the husband finally gets home in the morning, and, this really, I busted out laughing when she said this, because in any other place, the husband comes home in the morning, the wife's kind of distraught and says there was some kind of huge thing running around here on its hind legs last night messing with the house. And the husband goes, well, you sure it wasn't a bear? Well, in this case, the husband, first thing he says is, you sure it wasn't a skinwalker?
Skinwalker.
Well, it could be a Bigfoot. Are you sure it wasn't a skinwalker, though? We know those are around here.
Yeah,
oh, my God.
Those are around. Those are definitely around. And what's funny is I just was telling someone this, too, in Nevada. They have such knowledge of the skinwalkers that there's actually there's an attorney there, a divorce attorney. He's an attorney who takes on divorces, and he has specifically to deal with the native people there and the skinwalkers. He actually had filed a lawsuit against a skinwalker, telling that skinwalker that if anything happened to him in the proceedings, that he was going to be held accountable. And he actually got the judge to sign off on it.
Wow. So. Yeah, so there's like no question in their minds whatsoever that this is a real thing and there's really something going on.
Exactly.
And then the other one that I heard you talk about is the ones that are sort of like permanently dogmen, can't shift back and forth, sort of extra dimensional. They're created by magic to fight the giants.
Yeah,
and then couldn't really be readily controlled, and we're kind of like, well, you guys can live in this parallel dimension most of the time, and occasionally you come through and visit.
Right, and they step through and come into ours. And for that I have just simple thing to say to people who are non-believers and all of that. What were the first radios made out of? They were made out of crystals, okay? Mm-hmm. So ley lines are magnetic lines, and when you run a magnetic current through a crystal, strange things happen.
Yeah.
Strange things happen. So, do we believe that they can step through? Yes, I do. No problem. And like I said, there are specific types that I hunt for the tribes, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. So are they vulnerable? Yes. Can they be killed? Yes. There is a way to kill them. I'm here to say that and make sure that other people understand that, because I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going hunting and I'm taking a 12-gauge shotgun with me and I'm going to shoot it in the face. Okay, yeah, that'll work. No.
Yeah, that might work on ordinary flesh and blood critters, but not necessarily on something like that.
Exactly.
And let's not go too far into that, because we don't want anybody like buckling on the shield and the magic sword and going out after the werewolf or something. But
please don't.
Just to give you a little bit of a scientific spin on this whole thing, there is actually scientific stuff that backs up what Khat is talking about, and you can look at just very simple things like the Earth has a resonance frequency. Well, and guess what? Everything on Earth has a resonance frequency that's just slightly different than what Earth's, very slightly. But now the Earth's resonance frequency is actually changing. We know that that's occurring right now. Right. So is it moving us into a different vibrational frequency where we're going to start seeing these things more commonly? In other words, is the vibrational frequency changing to bring us closer to the dimension of Earth that they already live in, so making it easier for them to get here. Now, that's one thing that you can worry about. But if you could actually physically change the vibrational frequency of your body, you might be able to actually step into one of these other dimensions, and maybe that's how they're moving back and forth.
Exactly. And, you know, I put up the thing on my Facebook page. It says everything has a vibrational frequency. Every single thing on this planet does.
Yes, even a rock does, a plant does, everything does.
Yeah, and if you could tap into the vibrational frequency where these beings are, then theoretically you could step into their realm, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that there have been instances of that, you know? I mean, there's been very strange recordings of people, you know, saying that they're in one spot 1 minute and they step off and move in a different direction, and they swear that the entire area around them changes.
Right.
You know?
I heard like that. The guy was out in the mountains in the winter walking along. He got to the top of a ridgeline, started going down it, and all of a sudden he was in the jungle.
Yeah.
And it scared the hell out of him for a minute or two. He just kind of stood there in shock, and then he turned around and went back, followed his tracks exactly where he had come from, and he was back on the mountain again.
Yeah. So I believe that that's very, very possible, you know. And, I mean, a lot of native cultures believe that, too, you know, you can shift in and out of dimension. You know, it just takes the ability to sense where they're at, you know. Apparently, I get, like I said, I get a humming, a vibrating in my teeth and my bones. I can feel it, you know, and I have to stop and look. But other people, I don't know what they experience, you know, for being able to do that. But I do know that there are quite a number of reports of that occurring where people have shifted for a few minutes and then shifted back, you know, and they're lost. And and then you start thinking about it, and you remember hearing that there was like people walking in New York, you know, and they stepped off the curb and vanished, you know. So their perception there, if they're vanishing, that means that they're actually going somewhere or someplace in a different time, and people are witnessing it. So
we covered that story of that one guy in New York that went out to go get something from the store and never came back. And like 40 years later, he appeared on a curb, stepped off the curb, and got hit by a car. And all of his paperwork and everything was stuff that was like didn't exist anymore. There was just stuff that he had in his pockets that was like, oh, this is from a stable that used to be like half a block away 40 years ago.
Yep. You know, so it is possible. You know, theoretically, it is possible. And then you turn around and want to throw it into the mix. Has it happened? I believe it has. You know, it just hasn't been documented to the extent that it needs to be documented. Now,
well, and again, it's one of those things where it's like a lot of stuff can be lumped into paranormal that probably really isn't. And to me, paranormal is just some branch of science that we haven't got a good explanation for yet. And at some point, we're going to catch up with it. I mean, like the whole thing of portals and other dimensions and stuff like that was just the most ridiculous gobbledygook 100 years ago. But you start combining that with modern physics, quantum physics, you know, string theory, super gravity, 11 dimensions, and resonance frequencies, and you start looking at all of it and you go, well, wait. There's physics that backs this up. This could really be happening, and physics says it's possible.
Exactly. That was my heyday. That was like my hallelujah moment. What was it, 2-3 years ago when NASA came out and finally said, hey, there are portals. I was like posting that up everywhere. I said, see, all you people who say that I am a nut whack job, here you go. You know, because it's,
you know, and that's one of the things you got on me, Kat, because you're naturally receptive to that sort of thing. You were like, when you were a little kid, you could see ley lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that sort of gives you a leg up on it. You're naturally more attuned to that sort of thing, and you have the better sensory capabilities to deal with it. Now, you're a sensitive. I'm exactly the opposite. I'm an insensitive. I've lived in 3 haunted houses and had absolutely nothing happen to me the whole time I was there. And there was all kinds of occurrences before and after I was living there, but nothing while I was there. And it's either like I'm so insensitive that I'm putting off static that's interfering with the ghost even being there, or I'm just like, I already saw a Wendigo. There's no ghost on earth that could scare me. Don't waste your time. You pick which one you want to believe. But I've gone to these scary places. I was in an underground tunnel system that the local devil worshippers are using for a temple. and walking around looking at that. And, you know, taking pictures and shit, going, oh, that's kind of cool, you know, whatever, these people are crazy. Oh, look at all the neat skulls they carved in the wall. Well, isn't that interesting? And, you know, no effect, anybody else is terrified. So I'm one of those people that's like, I'm kind of the opposite of Bear. If it's anything to do with ghosts, Bear doesn't want nothing to do with it. And with me, it's like, ghosts. I've seen Wendigo. Ghosts are not scary. Ghosts don't scare me at all.
No, ghosts are not scary. Wendigo, that's something else. You know, please. No,
Totally.
I'm like you. I told you, there's very few things in the woods I will run from, but I've got news for you. I'm running. I see Wendigo.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, we kind of joke about that. After I managed to get somebody to do a mock-up of what the face looks like and got that out there in public, I had a couple of people contact me and said, hey, we've seen one of these things. And, of course, I was, like, highly suspicious, going, okay, well, tell me about it. And both of them started out with the same thing. Well, that illustration you got isn't exactly right. The teeth are a little bit different and the eyes are a little bit different. And I went, oh, you really did see one. Let's talk about this.
It's like when I did the illustration for you there, because I was trying so hard to explain to the artist. I said, listen, no, because the first one he sent me the picture, and I said, no, it doesn't even look mean. No, I said, let me help you here. No. You know, it's not doing it. It's not cutting it, because to say that you've seen one and then to actually have seen one. There's a difference, okay? I get people all the time say, oh, I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen a dogman. They don't scare me. Really? Wow, you're like the bravest person I've ever freaking known.
Yeah, insanely brave. You shouldn't be anywhere because you'll walk right into the path of a charging buffalo.
That's the one, you know, and you're just, you have no fear, really, because I have fear every day. You know, here I am. I've interacted with them for 50 years, and I'm about to walk up the hill. And you don't think I break out in a cold sweat when I know one of them's in a bad mood? Oh, yes, I do. I mean, I do.
To me, that's just proof that you're sane. I mean, you would have to, no matter how used you to knowing that these things are there, that they're real, you're going to be dealing with them potential. Yeah, there's no getting used to it. There's a fear factor involved. You're dealing with things that are not 100% known and have every physical capability to just rip you limb from limb like a piece of paper, you know. So if you can deal with one of those things and not be scared, you're insane. It's pretty simple.
I would think so, you know, because my kids, as they were growing up, my daughter just turned 18, my youngest did, and she just told me, she said, you know, Mom, I would love for you to do a television show. She said, just take people out walking in the woods. She goes, because you could have the camera guy walking with you, and you could just let them see what you see. She goes, and I would just love to watch. It'd be like a fear factor thing. She said, you'd be walking. She goes, because we've dealt with you. You know, you try really hard not to be afraid, and when you get scared, you always turn us around and huddle us away and stuff. I would love to see a grown man go out there with your mom.
Be like photographer fear factor. Well, we've never had a photographer on the show that's lasted more than 5 minutes. Let's see what today's contestant can do. Oh, 3.5 minutes. Oh, we haven't got a winner, but tune in for next show. Photographer fear factor.
Photographer fear factor. You know, because I seriously have tried over the years. You know, I mean, my boys are the closest ones. You know, and I've got 3 boys, and my 3 boys all say the same thing. Okay, 2 of them are like, okay, I'll deal with them if I have to, but I really don't want to do this, Mom, you know, and they grit their teeth and they're pissed off. Then there's my youngest, and everybody laughs over this. My youngest son is 24, and his way of dealing with them is to not deal with them, okay? We go up in the mountains. He's like, are we getting close? Are we getting close? And I'm like, yeah, we're almost there. Out comes a flask. This is no joke, from Rome, of holy water. He goes to visit Rome every year and gets a flask of holy water, brings it back, and he says, okay, I'm done. Pours it out in front of him. He says, Mom, I had to see him when I was a kid. I'm an adult. Screw this. And he turns around and walks down the mountain. And that's how he uses it.
Right on. Now the kid's got some sense.
Yeah.
So
you know.
while we're on before we finish on this topic, the sweepstakes of who's the most likely culprit. So we've got the type 3s, the Gugwees, and where I got that name from is the Micmac Indian Confederation.
Right.
Call them Gugwe. And the first tribe that the white man would have ran into in North America that really had anything to say about them and that they would have known anything about was probably the Micmacs. So I just kind of default went, well, they're the first ones the white man contacted. They call it Gugwe. We'll call it Gugwe.
Yep.
So that's sort of the name that I use for it. And I like Face Eater too, but that's a little bit descriptive and kind of freaks some people out. But yeah, between the Face Eaters and the Puckwudgies, you got two real good front runners there for missing people. Is there anybody else that you'd add to the list?
Like I said, I'll throw a dogman in there, but and they are from time. I just don't see that as in breeding population that bad for these guys. Don't get me wrong, they are breeding, but I don't see it like that. My bet is going with either the Puckwudgies or else it's going with the Face Eaters. I've stand my ground on that one, and I'm going to keep standing it. Although, if you want to throw in some high strangeness, then you can throw in the portals opening over Skinwalker Ranch and big things coming through there.
Right.
So could it be something else that's decided that Earth is food friendly? Sure could.
Yeah.
Who's to say that it hasn't? I can't say that.
Supposedly the reptoids like eating humans too, but let's not open up that can of worms. Another one that comes to mind that's going to be a lot less common, but could definitely be a culprit for mass disappearances. I had a report from one of my friends up in Alaska that there was a mountain giant in this area, a troll, known to be in this area. And in fact, the neighboring tribe had moved in there several hundred years earlier, and they knew the thing was there when they moved into the area. It was already there. And so they just left this area that it lived in alone and didn't go there, which seemed to work out just fine.
Right.
Well, then it got more civilized, and other people started going into that area hunting and disappearing. And apparently within the span of just a couple, 2 or 3 years, they lost like a couple dozen people in this area. And rumor has it that the government finally decided to do something about it and showed up with some black helicopters and a hit team and got rid of it. Well, interestingly enough, like I said, this is like one lone individual that had apparently been in the area for several hundred years. So these things can live an incredibly long time, which is, again, an attribute of the giants. And one of the things that got me interested in this, because they list Oga Bashan as living about 5,000 years. That's one of the main biblical giants in Canaan. And then if you look at, like, your typical human lifespan without technology, maybe around 50 years. So, 1/100th of it. And then if you, like, get something that's sort of in between, like, half giant, half Bigfoot, might live around 500 years. And that kind of sounds like how long these things are living.
Yeah. Exactly, and I'll speak to that a little bit in that my group, Kiasa, he relates with his age, and as near as I can figure out with him, he's over 123 years. So,
wow.
So, and I can attest to that in that I have seen these guys get shot, okay? They get shot, and the wounds that it manifests on them doesn't appear at that particular moment that they get shot. You're not seeing a gaping wound. What you will see is a few days later. You're going to see it. It manifests very slowly. They heal very slowly. They age very slowly. Their children are born big, Bradis, the one that I have the picture of looking at me sideways because he was being bad, he is now a teenager, and he is absolutely enormous. Like I said, he's almost 7 feet tall, I want to say. Yeah, that's about right, 7 feet. He's real gangly, but it took him forever to get to this point. And as I'm watching him now, I noticed that his smell has changed. Everything about him has changed because he's becoming a young adult. And it just seems like the hair doesn't grow as fast on his body. His facial features are still real smooth, like a child,
Doesn't have wrinkles or anything.
Right, and for that matter, the only one in my group that I have that is old, you know, and I've documented her really well, is Lemmy, the oldest female, and she has an atrophied arm, you know, and I'm not sure if she was born with that or if it was from an injury she received early on. But she doesn't make a lot of sense. She almost has like senile dementia, you know, because they never let her be by herself. She's always got someone with her. And she talks about people being here she calls them in the portable caves. And the portable caves are wagons. So,
which now brings me to another interesting point, and you're practically the only person that can even like talk about this. You mentioned several times here, sort of obliquely, that you have conversations with them, and of course, Ron Moorhead has already documented, along with the team that did this years ago with the Sierra Sounds, that they have a language and they talk.
yes.
And you've mentioned before that you know their language, and it's not really big. They, you know, a little over 100 words or something like that, I think, if I remember right.
Right.
Can you teach us some basic Bigfoot language, like, you know, hi, I'm your friend, or please don't stop me, or useful phrases that someone in the woods running into a Bigfoot might want to know?
Yeah, I can. I actually can. I teach them to all my children. They had to learn early on because I wanted them to know that they meant no harm, you know. And I know everybody says, "Oh, well, they're kids. Wouldn't you think that they meant no harm?" Not necessarily, because they associate humans with being jerks, you know, and they do.
Well, they've got us pegged. No question
You know?
about that. They got us figured out. That's why they're not hanging around with us, because we're jerks, and they figured it out. Damn it. Well, no, that just makes it so much more difficult. If we weren't jerks, it'd be so much easier.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, I explained that in that I've had one of my males tell me that there was a point before I was, ever introduced to them, that he saw a man kill another man and take his body and dump it right there in the woods, and he was standing there watching him dump it. So he was like, he killed him, you know, and he's like,
right.
The look that he gave me, he's like, you know, humans are just disgusting things. You know, you kill each other. Shame on you, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
and for them, that's like totally taboo. You do not kill members of your own troop or anything like that. Although I understand if they're having wars with a neighboring troop that's maybe not the same type of Bigfoot, that it's all no holds barred, rip their head off.
Right, it's allowed, you know, but I mean, this is genocide of your own tribe, you know, so they're like, what are you doing? You know, I mean, and that's part of the reason that they took me in as a child. You know, people don't realize that when I'm telling them my story, you know, I was raised by 6 men, okay? How unusual is that in any species, okay? So mine were looking at my dad and my uncles like, you've got a little female there, and there's no females in your house. What the hell? You know, what's wrong? What's going on here? You know, and so that was why they allowed me to interact with their female, because I didn't have any, you know, so it was wrong. And that's the way that they look at us. You know, they're like, humans are screwy, you know, and we're dangerous to them. So I always tell people, if you want to, I give people a couple of different pieces of advice. First of all, when you're out and about and you stumble into one of these guys, please don't smile. You know, everybody does that big smile. Oh, hi, it's me. I'm nice.
God, no. God, no.
No, you're showing your teeth. You're showing your teeth. And to them, I have a video up on my other channel, the Hoodoo Woman channel, and it says smiling is not friendly. It's not. It's a sign of aggression. You know, it's nervous, and it's demonstrating to them that there's a couple different things going on through your brain. You know, because it's going
exactly,
through
and there's natural corollaries for this too. If you look at the great apes' behavior, and even like the lower primates, the monkeys and baboons and stuff like that, when they smile, it's a threat. They're telling you that's weapons they've got to tear you apart with. You know, I could smile at Bigfoot and he wouldn't take it as a threat because I don't have any teeth, and he'd just laugh at me and go, ha, 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 you can't do anything. You're more pitiful beauty than a normal human. So, and you haven't even got a gun with you either. What the hell are you doing out in the woods? You're crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy. We're not going to mess with him. He's crazy.
Well, I noticed that they weren't avoiding me too much. At one point I figured out where they were hunting. and they had a nice little area there where there was a nice thicket. The deer had to go through it to get down to the yummy grass in the rich people's yards further down the mountain, and they had a choke point there, and they would go down there every night, and I'd hear little wood taps, one tap, okay, I'm in position. 2 taps coming from closer to me, okay, I'm in position ready to chase them toward you. And this would be going on 4 times a week for weeks during the spring. And I was up there camping every night listening to this. And a couple of times they came walking really close to camp. I caught one pretending to be a stump about, 100 feet from where my tent was. And he gave me the stink eye. And then one of the bigger alphas came by and left a 20-inch track. And at one point I was sitting in the tent listening to these guys, and it was early in the evening, and they must not have got into position yet because I heard the one going by the side of the camp, and my God, what a stank. It smelled like if you took an entire refrigerator full of meat, unplugged it, and left it sit for a month, and then opened the door, it still wouldn't smell that bad. And I was just sitting there thinking for a minute, okay, now wait a minute. We got type 2s up here, or are these friggin' face eaters? Because this thing smells horrible. And then I started thinking about it. Well, there's no green stuff growing yet. It's early in the spring. Probably all they're eating right now is deer. And they're not being real careful about cleaning the blood out of their hair. So they're starting to smell really frickin' bad.
Yeah.
Well, dear, I'm looking at the clock here, and we are about out of time. In fact, we're over the time limit at this point, and only because the system will allow us to get away with that are we even going to get any of this recorded. But obviously, you and me could talk for like 3 or 4 days straight. So we're definitely going to have you back on the show again. I hope you'd be willing to come on again because I had so much fun talking to you. I'm sure that the listeners out there would love to hear from you again. And you pretty much got an open invitation to come on back on the show whenever you want to and share some more of your knowledge on stoma and face eaters and the other dangerous stuff out there that's running around that really we should know something about. Once again, it was so great that you would come on the show and spend some time with me and talk about this stuff. Really appreciate it. And definitely, I'm extending the hand saying anytime you want to come back on the show and do another episode, I'd love to have you back, Kat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I would love to come back. I love talking with you because you have knowledge. That's why.
Well, and that's one of the things that I love about having guests like you because I look for the ones that really know a lot about what they're talking about, and I particularly look for people that know something about certain things about Bigfoot-related stuff that I don't know. Because I can't talk to people about things that I don't know. So I need to find guests that can fill in some of those blanks on the stuff that I don't know. And you are just one of the greatest resources out there because you're not only knowledgeable about the Sasquatch people, but you've got tons of other experience with these other cryptids that are like, I don't even want to deal with these damn things. You can take care of that. That's all your job.
Thank you.
I'm trying to learn about the ones that are dangerous and figure out how to avoid them. That's pretty much what I'm up to at this point. And I'm going to share that information with everybody else. Here's the dangerous ones. Here's how to avoid them. And that is all the people need to know.
That works good for me. You should write it. That's what it is.
Duke on what to avoid in the woods and how to avoid it. With special guest Khat Hansen and many others. They're telling stories of humans being ripped limb from limb. Let's give you 10 good examples. You think missing 411 is scary? No, that's nothing compared to what actually happens. That's what's really scary.
That's scary. Oh, my God. Here's the sad part. You and I live in that, okay? We delve into that, okay? Everybody else runs away from it, and you and I are like, no, we need to study this.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's it. I mean, for me, it's akin to if I lived here in Montana and they said there was no such thing as a grizzly bear. But people are seeing grizzly bears, and occasionally somebody would get mauled by one. But they still keep saying there's no such thing as grizzly bears. Well, you damn well better believe that I would be out there trying to document the existence of grizzly bears and get all the information I could on them and spread it around to everybody so people don't die by accident from running into one of these grizzly bears that they say don't exist.
Thank you. That's exactly, and that's our message for today. They do exist. They do. So be Here, do your Elmer Fudd. You know, be very, very quiet, okay, when you're out in the woods, because they're
and just, be aware of your surroundings. If you're going to go out camping in the woods, you'd want to have the right camping gear, right? And you'd want to know what animals are in the area that you're in. And you'd want to know, if you're in an area with grizzly or mountain lions, how to avoid being attacked by one of these things. Well, it's no different. So it's just, common sense, safety first, safety last, safety always. And don't take stupid chances. And if you know what it is that you're dealing with, you have a much better chance of never getting into the situation where you're even confronted by it, much less have to deal with an aggressive version of fill in the blank, whatever it is.
Exactly. And that makes you a safer, saner, smarter person.
Exactly. And the other thing is, too, if you know how to avoid situations that will get you into this, it's going to make it better for them, too, because they're going to have more knowledgeable humans out there going, oh, that's an X structure. I shouldn't go walking past that. It's their territory. They might get mad.
That's my favorite, Please don't go hang on them, and please don't take pictures of your kids falling all over them, because what that does is just incite them and make them totally, so
if you live anywhere near where they are, for God's sakes, do not take a whiz on their tree structures. Oh, God help you if you do that. You're so asking for it. That's a challenge. That is a challenge to whoever made that tree structure, and they're going to smell it and go, oh, I know where that came from. I'm going to go accept that challenge. And then your life will be miserable, assuming you survive any longer.
Exactly.
But anyway, safety first, safety last, safety always. Well, I'm going to let you go here. Want to say thanks to all the fans for tuning in and for listening to another show. And say fans, and it's like every time I say that, I cringe. It's like, oh, God, I've got fans. That's so weird. Well, thanks to my listeners for tuning in to another episode of Really Not Comfortable Having Fans. Thanks to my listeners. Love you guys. Keep listening into the show. And like I always like to say at the end of every program, we have problems in our lives. We have things going on. Right now we got hurricanes and huge fires and stuff in the country. Do your part. Be part of the community, be part of the society, be part of the people of the United States. Reach out, help everyone to the extent that you're capable of doing, and always try and be safe, be kind to everyone else. And no matter what, God help you, do not hug the Wookiee. See you later, everybody. Have a great week.